Hi, and welcome back to AppSecCon 2022. We're about to kick off a panel discussion. This is about the best practices in DevSecOps implementation. And we've got three great speakers who have got a lot of experience rolling out DevSecOps in organizations of different sizes. First of all, we have Les Correo, the Global Head of Application Security at the Estee Lauder Companies, Russell Ragar, Head of Product Security at SnapDocs, and Sangram Dash, Senior Director of Cybersecurity at CDK. This is a great conversation. I look forward to hearing what they've all got to say.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the AppSecCon. Specifically, this talk is on best practices in DevSecOps implementation. I'm happy to join my peers in the industry and experts, if you will, Russell Rugger and Sangram Dash. And my name is Les Correa. Mm-hmm. I'll just introduce myself right now. My name, like I said, I'm Les Correa. I'm the global head of application security at the Estee Lauder Companies. I've been in the industry for a while, and I've been in architecture, engineering, and ops, security architecture, engineering, and ops, and I have many hats within the company. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Russell, if you can quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Russell Rager. I'm the head of product security at SnapDocs, which is a fintech unicorn with about 550 employees and rapidly growing. And thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Thank you, Russell. And Sangram, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sangram Dash. Glad to be talking here. My background primarily has been fintech. I spent several years with organizations like PayPal, Square, even at a bank called Silicon Valley Bank. Most recently, I'm the senior director responsible for cybersecurity in general, with specific focus on identity management and governance, risk, and compliance. Glad to be here sharing my insights along with my peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangram. So without further ado, I know we've got a short period of time, and it's basically we decided as a team to share experiences, if anything, because those are important nuggets that you can take home, if you will. So without further ado, Russell, can you share some of your experiences, a few nuggets that, our audience can take back home and implement, if you will, or something that was a pain point that you overcame?
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Sure. Thank you. Definitely I led the program to deploy DevSecOps here at SnapDocs. And one of the key things that we learned in that process was that for DevSecOps to be successful, you have to promote a culture where security is everyone's responsibility. And to do that, we really need to establish that close relationship with engineering and product management. One of the key tools that you have to do that really is the creation of a strong security champions program. And one of the mistakes that I made initially actually was thinking the security champions program was just a community of volunteers. But as we continued to work forward with that model, we realized that we really needed to provide designated champions in each engineering team. We needed someone in every team so we could assign responsibilities to those security champions and kind of a distributed engineering model for security. So we went to our engineering leadership and secured a formal commitment of time for the security champions in each engineering team, that we could assign those security champions to do such things as tools training, threat modeling, general coordination of security activities in that engineering team. Then we had our central AppSec team perform partnerships. In other words, we have AppSec security engineers who created a partnership with the embedded security champions. And this allowed collaboration, basically, so that we could do things like the security champion could then author a threat model for a particular feature or product, and the security engineers could review it. That way, we had a method of collaboration and a scalability that allowed our program to work well with a kind of fusion between AppSec and engineering. One of the other security best practices that we found definitely was that in order to be successful in DevSecOps, there's a lot of attention played upon the secure SDLC process, but really generally there's a lot of focus on the technical system or the platform that we're using, which is really important. But I also really want to put forward that understanding what is passing through the software development processes in your company, what's in your software factory's assembly line, is also just as important as actually understanding all the different steps and the gates along the way. You have to, the central AppSec team has to be able to understand what is passing through the company, so you can make sure that the steps that you're laying out in your secure SDLC are actually being done. You need to track them and measure if those things are actually being followed. So you want to make sure that the secure SDLC requirements that you've set up are actually being consistently followed, so you can measure them and you can actually make improvements over the system overall. Now, your security champions, as the boots on the ground, they can definitely help keep you apprised of work that is slipping around or through the SDLC and not actually being accomplished. But really, in order for this to be successful, you need to partner closely with your product management team and your engineering management team, but product management, so you can understand what are the product initiatives that are passing through the system. You can make sure that those work packages are actually getting all the steps in the secure SDLC that you require. Obviously, there is a lot of work that still happens in a software development team that does not come out of product management. They're engineering initiatives, so you need to partner with your engineering management as well, so you can understand what are large things there. Probably the best thing we have found is trying to plug into engineering processes, understand what the engineering processes are, understand what the architecture approval processes are, utilize those and become actively involved in those, so that you can include engineering initiatives in the work that is passing through your SDLC as well. So I think that's been very important in order to be successful in a DevSecOps program.
Yeah, I can add a couple of things here very quick, and
Sure.
Let's make sure that we're tracking on time here. So,
Sure.
in fact, the way I see this, and let's please share your insights as well. The way I see this is obviously we make software, right? So software creation is a difficult process, and when you're talking about getting the security right, it cannot be security team's responsibility as in like go and find what went wrong and fix it. So if you can fix it, it's going to be expensive. It's already late in the game, right? So being partner with the right set of people, get-go, makes sense. And also, I think in my experiences, you can literally talk about saving money by building good software. In the sense, some of these organizations I've been part of, they reduce their risk in terms of the basis points and essentially add that to the business margin. So why it is critical? Because end of the day, we always have been asked to justify the spend for security. And when we connect that back to we save money for you, or we do things which is right for the organization and for our customers, that has a very different value proposition. And I'll touch one more minute on something on the screen you see. This is kind of a cheat sheet. You can essentially think like if you're going to build a security operations or a security program for a cloud, you don't have to start from scratch. There are a lot of tools out there. You have to just make sure that you're picking the right set of tools with the right set of people who understand how to operate the tool and patch it together. The tech stack and security stack go hand in hand. If the tech stack is changing, you've got to make sure that your security stack is changing. But end of the day, it still comes back to the basic concept of, are we making quality software? And that is the engineer, that is those people who are writing the code, reviewing the code, deploying the code, are the responsible. So that's my 2 cents, and would love to hear from your point of view, Jess. Les, what is your experience being a practitioner in the industry?
Yes, thank you for that, Sangram, as well, for team. I just first want to recap these 2 critical points that both of you made, both Russell and Sangram. Security is everybody's responsibility. So in fact, the word security, is in the middle, exactly in the middle. So that's a point, because it improves value. First of all, it's a value proposition. You also made another point. I know, Sangram, you said that quality and security are actually synonymous. It starts from the Deming days, where you start early and you save a lot, and reducing risks and so on, and start early. And I know, Russell, you mentioned monitoring, and that's oftentimes the hardest part of it, because we monitor everything else within operations, and we hardly ever audit and check that we are actually following. We say, oh, we got the process because the auditors did that. But what are we doing? Because auditors just do certain points in time. They don't necessarily have a method to the madness where you're continuously monitoring and improving, if you will. Now, going back to ours is a large company. It's actually it's very disparate. It's in different regions, brands and functions. Ours is not as mature yet, but I've got fantastic peers in our company and elsewhere in the industry where we've shared ideas. So we are evolving our secure SDLC, and I'll be remiss if I didn't mention, within our company we have some really phenomenal people. But as in any company, the first thing, if I could share nuggets, right? Cultural change is important. So you have to think agile. People say they're agile, but they're not. So that's one. The other thing is organizational change management. We have to make sure that as a company, when you have these big companies, they are used to a standard way of doing things. Certain things within software development cannot be done that way, or it'll take forever. And today, everything's at speed. So you need to be at the forefront of any in the industry itself. You need to be quick with the technology itself. I think it's important to develop policies. So these are things that we are developing that match up to what you're saying, because this way you can enforce certain things, build minimum standards for both security and privacy. That's important, especially if you're multinational and so on and so forth. You spoke about that security awareness and champions and so on. So I wouldn't delve much deeper into that area. Other things that you have to understand the technologies. And if I could say one more quick thing in terms of even setting, we tend to go by scans and all that. You would see this wonderful slide that's been put up here by our team here, Sangram in particular. They'll scan and they give you some scores and so on, but you have to measure that in terms of the risk to your company very specifically, because just because something is said to be medium and so on, it doesn't mean anything. Depends on where that touch point is. And so I think you start with guardrails, so not really exactness, but start with, several, a measure, some guardrails, if anything. And then I would only say one more last thing, if I could share, is in terms of open source, be aware of the licenses that come with it, because that has a significant impact. Because sometimes when you write code and you think you're really writing open source, some of that code, you might be obliged to share it, depending on the licenses there. And oftentimes people don't pay attention to that until there's litigation or whatever. But lastly, API security, and we look at APIs because it's a big thing. Thank you.
Yep. Russell, I don't know. I think I'm sure, Russell, you have something very interesting to share with respect to the how do you do in practice the threat modeling and aspect of knowing, are we doing the right thing at get-go? Architecture review, design review, how much of that is keeping customer in the center of the way we design our platform and do the security around it, even including privacy. Yeah,
sure. Well, I think the first thing is to know when you want to do threat modeling. So, as I said before, understanding kind of like the work packages or what's passing through SLC is actually incredibly important there. To us, we believe that we should threat model whenever there's a significantly new architecture or a new feature because those have a tendency to add new threats. What we do is we have the security champions, which we have spent time instructing them on STRIDE and other threat modeling techniques to generate threats and associate controls. And we're trying to pick those up in a structured fashion so we can actually enforce that those controls are actually being followed later on. Then we have our security engineers from the central team work with them to review those proposals and make sure those drafts and make sure that they're complete. So really our central security engineering team is really responsible for making sure that the bar is constantly rising and that we're meeting our security bar, and the bulk of the work falls on the distributed teams.
Yep. I can add one quick thing to this.
Sure.
So I believe the way the industry is going, and in fact, privacy is going to be a very core component of security at a large, because the techniques used to ensure data privacy is essentially in the world of security, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the privacy is no longer going to be, I think obviously there's a regulatory aspect of it. You do it for regulation, but customers are going to demand more and more.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense, the organizations like, the big Apple is essentially selling privacy as a product differentiator. So market will definitely look at and evolve where customers will trust the brands and the organizations who essentially do good security practice and demonstrate that in the world forum that yes, they're good at it, and also privacy aspect of it. So I'm looking ahead. What I see is this notion of DevSecOps somewhere will blend, and there will be something to DevSec privacy ops or some innovation happening in that front. Mm-hmm. And obviously shifting left is what we have been talking for a long time, going closer to where the software is being written and essentially secure that. But there is also ways to think how the microservices are being deployed, how the cloud deployment, and who got control over what information, data, and whatnot. So this is a very exciting field. If I could dream of a future world, it will be a world where practitioners are more responding to consumers' demand in terms of building features and securing, building features to secure data. So that's kind of my thought process. Anything you would like to comment? There is a little bit of work happening between privacy and security, and that's going to be probably more in a future domain, as I see.
In fact, you cued on to exactly what we are doing within our company. Between the lines, I said minimum security and privacy standards, and we are taking that seriously. And especially when you work, the technology that's used is, potentially security products and services. If you have to encrypt or tokenize or mask or whatever technologies you use, especially there are countries that you have, that you're obliged to do certain things, so that you have to work on workarounds. And that's an important point, Sangram, that you bring up. As far as I know, we're going to be running out of time. The other thing about threat modeling, for the longest time, it had been with security itself. And that's why we are trying to, let's put it that way, because it's a work in progress, to introduce tools that will help us to get to at a faster point, if it will. In some cases, you have to go shift right because stuff is already in production. Yeah. And it's been over the years. So you need to already scan and have, this is how it's actually working. Now let's revisit what we did for modeling. That brings in another very important point, which, Sangram, you sort of also said, microservices, right? All of these they communicate through APIs. So it's how do you protect those communication channels, as well as, so keeping track of all that. So it means assets. So today, what we used to call assets were physical assets. Now it's IP addresses, it's APIs, it's websites, and so on and so forth.
Yes, exactly.
I think.
I can give you two more cents. In fact, one of these companies, I think we can name the company here because, less work, right? The reason they got a lot of funding is with the aspiration to build automation around right from top layer 7 below, right? So if you look at the way the data being created on obviously internet architecture, but creating data at all 7 layers. Some of these tooling today are not really deep into the layer 3 or 4 or all of that. There's still a lot of these tools are dealing with layer 7, possibly 6, right? So you will see transformation happening because this data set is available and it will be ingested in a very good way, smart way to find detection, find patterns, to even predict what could be a future incident. So that is another aspect of AppSec program, which will complement us. Like we're talking about Arbor Code, and some of you know about them. It is orchestration, but apart from orchestration, you will see they will be better at orchestrating because there are more and more data available for them to build insights from. And where those are coming? From the toolings we have, the cloud infrastructure we have. And it'll be a very interesting thing to see in future how we collectively will continue to make, at least our attempt is to make the world secure.
Thank you for that. I know this can go on for a whole day, but we'll run out of time. And thank you, Russell, and thank you, Sandra. And this is Les Korea. Thank you
very much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.